Have you ever felt like you're repeating the same mistakes your parents made? Or that despite your best efforts, you end up trapped in the same family dynamics you've always criticized? You're not alone. Today, we're going to explore one of the deepest topics in psychology: how to recognize and break toxic family patterns through the wisdom of Carl Jung, one of the most revolutionary thinkers of the 20th century. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a river. From the moment you're born, this river flows in a direction that seems predetermined. The waters of that river are your thought patterns, your emotional reactions, your daily decisions. And the most interesting thing is that we're often unaware that we're navigating a channel that others dug for us long ago. Jung discovered something fascinating. We don't just inherit physical traits from our ancestors, but psychological patterns as well. He called it the collective unconscious. It's as if each family had its own hidden code, transmitted from generation to generation. A code that can be nurturing and strengthening, or on the contrary, toxic and limiting. Think for a moment. How many times have you found yourself repeating phrases you swore you'd never say? I'm doing this for your own good. In this house, we do as I say. You'll never be enough. Phrases you perhaps heard as a child and vowed never to repeat. And yet there they are, coming out of your mouth as if you had a pre-established script. According to Jung, these patterns aren't coincidental. They're what he called complexes, systems of ideas and emotions charged with energy that act from our unconscious. The problem is that, as long as they remain in the shadow, in that part of ourselves we don't want to see, they'll continue to control our lives without us realizing it. The first step to breaking a toxic family pattern is recognizing it. And for that, you need to be willing to look within yourself honestly. Jung said that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's the key, turning fate into conscious choice. How do you know if you're trapped in a toxic family pattern? There are clear signs that Jung identified. The first is repetition. If you notice that you always end up in the same type of dysfunctional relationships, if conflicts in your life follow a recognizable pattern, if your emotional reactions seem disproportionate in certain situations, you're seeing the imprint of an unconscious pattern. Another sign is the feeling of inevitability, that inner voice that tells you, it's always been this way in my family, or this is what we are. Jung taught us that this feeling of inescapable destiny is precisely the hallmark of an activated complex. It's not your destiny. It's an inherited program that can be rewritten. Think about your childhood. What messages did you receive about love, money, success, relationships? Jung discovered that these early messages don't just form our conscious beliefs, but they're installed in what he called the inner child. That part of you that, even as you grow and mature, continues to respond from fear, lack, or pain. Maybe you grew up in a family where love was conditional on achievement. I love you because you get good grades. I'm proud of you because you won. And now, as an adult, you find yourself in a constant search for approval, unable to value yourself if you don't achieve something tangible. Or perhaps the pattern in your family was sacrifice. A good mother always sacrifices for her children. A good father works until exhaustion. And now you find yourself unable to set boundaries, trapped in relationships where you give until you're empty. Jung called these patterns family archetypes. They're like invisible molds that shape our personality. The archetype of the savior, the scapegoat, the invisible child, the family hero. Do you identify with any of them? We all have an assigned role in the family drama, and often continue to play it long after we've left the family home. One of the most damaging patterns Jung identified is what we now call parentification, when a child is forced to assume adult roles prematurely. Perhaps you had to take care of your siblings or become the emotional support for one of your parents. This pattern creates adults who don't know how to receive, who feel guilty when someone takes care of them, and who are constantly exhausted by excessive responsibility. Another common pattern is that of the family secret. Jung knew that what remains unspoken in a family doesn't disappear. It simply transforms and emerges in distorted ways. Unmentioned addictions, silenced traumas, infidelities that no one talks about. All this creates what he called the family shadow, a set of denied truths that, paradoxically, exert more power precisely because they're kept hidden. But here comes the good news. Jung not only identified these patterns, but also gave us powerful tools to break them. And the first one is awareness. By naming the pattern, by recognizing it, you're already diminishing its power. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The shadows don't disappear, but they can no longer control you in the same way. The second step is acceptance. You can't change what you deny. Jung invites us to accept our family history not as a sentence, but as the starting point for our transformation. It's not about blaming our parents or grandparents. They too were trapped in their own unconscious patterns. It's about taking responsibility for our healing. The third step, and perhaps the most powerful, is what Jung called individuation. The process of becoming who you truly are, beyond family expectations, beyond assigned roles, beyond inherited fears. It's a journey toward your true self, a journey that requires courage, but promises a freedom you may have never imagined possible. What does this process look like in real life? It begins by observing your reactions. The next time you find yourself caught in an intense emotion, ask yourself, whose reaction is this? Is it mine, or am I channeling someone from my family? Jung discovered that many of our emotional reactions are actually inherited emotional memories, responses we learned by watching our parents or grandparents. Another powerful exercise is creating an emotional genogram. Not just a family tree with names and dates, but a map of the emotional patterns that repeat. Are there addictions that appear generation after generation? Divorces that follow a pattern? Illnesses that seem to affect certain family members? Jung taught us that these patterns aren't coincidences, but manifestations of what he called the family unconscious. One of Jung's most revolutionary concepts was synchronicity. It's no coincidence that you're watching this video right now. If the topic of toxic family patterns resonates with you, it's because a part of you is ready to awaken, to break the cycle. Jung would say that your inner being has guided you here because you're ready for this transformational work. Now, breaking family patterns isn't a one-day task. Jung compared it to alchemy, a transformation process that requires patience, attention, and commitment. There will be days when you feel like you're going backward, moments when the strength of the family pattern seems overwhelming. This is normal. Patterns don't break all at once. They gradually transform as you bring more awareness to your daily life. One of the most powerful tools Jung offered us is active imagination. It's a conscious dialogue with the parts of you that carry the burden of family patterns. Imagine that you can converse with your inner child, with that part of you that remained trapped in the family drama. What does it need to tell you? What does it need from you now? Or imagine that you can talk to your ancestors, not from judgment or blame, but from the understanding that they too were doing the best they could with the tools they had. Jung believed in the healing power of these internal dialogues, in their ability to reconcile us with our history and release the energy trapped in repetitive patterns. Another key to breaking toxic patterns is what Jung called reparenting. It's about becoming the father or mother you needed when you were a child. About giving yourself the love, understanding, patience, and guidance you perhaps didn't receive. It's not a process of self-indulgence, but of deep self-care and responsibility. As you progress on this path of transformation, you'll begin to notice subtle but profound changes. The constant fear that accompanied you begins to dissolve. Toxic relationships no longer attract you as before. Your body, which perhaps carried the tension of maintaining these patterns, begins to relax. These are signs that you're breaking the family spell, that you're reclaiming your right to an authentic life. Jung discovered something fascinating. When one person in a family begins this work of awareness, the entire family dynamic changes. Not necessarily because others change, although sometimes that happens, but because your new way of relating alters the entire system. Like a stone falling into a pond, your personal transformation creates ripples that affect everyone around you. However, you should also be prepared for resistance. When you begin to break family patterns, it's common for opposition to arise. Not everyone will be comfortable with your new level of awareness, with your new boundaries, with your emerging authenticity. Jung called this the price of individuation. It's not a price you should fear, but an indicator that you're on the right path. One of the most difficult but necessary parts of this process is grief. Grief for the family you never had, for the childhood you deserved, for the parts of you that had to adapt to survive. Jung taught us that this grief isn't a negative process, but an act of deep self-love. By honoring your pain, you release it, allowing new energy to flow into your life. As you progress on this path, you'll discover what Jung called the hard-to-reach treasure. Because paradoxically, it's often in our deepest wounds that we find our most valuable gifts. Perhaps the pattern of invisibility you experienced in your family developed an extraordinary sensitivity in you. Or maybe the emotional chaos you grew up in gave you a unique ability to stay calm in difficult situations. Jung believed that our wounds aren't just obstacles to overcome, but portals to our deepest purpose. It's what he called the sacred wound. That place of pain that, when recognized and honored, becomes the source of our greatest contribution to the world. There's a fundamental Jungian concept for understanding family patterns: projection. Jung discovered that we tend to project onto others those parts of ourselves that we don't want or can't recognize. Thus, the father who constantly criticizes his son's weakness is projecting his own unrecognized vulnerability. The mother who obsessively controls her daughter is projecting her own fear of chaos. Recognizing these projections is key to breaking toxic patterns. Every time you find yourself harshly judging someone, especially a family member, ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing in this person? What does this intense reaction show me about myself? Another powerful concept from Jung is the shadow. All families have a collective shadow, those qualities, emotions, or truths that the family system cannot accept and therefore represses. If you grew up in a family where expressing anger was forbidden, it's likely that anger became part of the family shadow. And what's in the shadow doesn't disappear. It simply finds indirect and often destructive ways to manifest. Jung invites us to reclaim our shadow, both personal and familial, not to act from it irresponsibly, but to integrate it, to recognize it as a legitimate part of our human experience. When you do this, you release an enormous amount of energy that was previously spent keeping these aspects of yourself repressed. As you advance in this work of awareness, something wonderful begins to happen. Patterns that previously seemed to have a life of their own begin to lose their power. Automatic reactions become conscious choices. Where there was once compulsion, now there's freedom. Jung called this psychological freedom, the ability to respond to life from your authentic center, not from your unconscious programming. This journey of transformation also profoundly affects your current relationships. Jung discovered that, until we resolve our pending family issues, we tend to recreate those same dynamics in our adult relationships. The authoritarian boss who irritates you so much may be activating your unresolved relationship with your father. The partner who never listens to you may be reflecting the mother who was too busy to attend to you. As you heal these original wounds, your relationships transform. You no longer need others to represent the characters in your family drama. You no longer unconsciously seek to confirm your limiting beliefs about yourself or the world. It's as if you could finally see people as they are, not as projections of your past. One of the most beautiful gifts of this work is the compassion that emerges, both toward yourself and your family. Jung emphasized that true forgiveness isn't an act of will, but the natural result of a deeper understanding. When you see how patterns have been transmitted from generation to generation, when you recognize that your parents were also wounded children, a compassion is born that doesn't deny the pain, but transcends it. This compassion doesn't mean you should maintain toxic relationships or allow abuse. In fact, Sometimes the most compassionate act, both for yourself and others, is to establish clear boundaries or even temporarily distance yourself. Jung was clear that individuation sometimes requires physical or emotional separation to develop your own psychological center. As you continue on this journey, you begin to experience what Jung called the encounter with the self. The self, with a capital S, is the totality of your being, beyond family identifications, beyond wounds, beyond even your conscious ego. It's your deepest essence, that part of you that has always remained intact despite toxic patterns. This encounter can manifest in many ways: a significant dream, an amazing synchronicity, a sudden feeling of connection with something greater than yourself. Jung saw in these moments the evidence of a process of internal guidance, as if a wisdom beyond your conscious mind was accompanying you on your journey of transformation. And so, step by step, day by day, choice after choice, toxic family patterns lose their power over you. They don't completely disappear, Jung was realistic about this, but they no longer determine your life. They become part of your history, not your destiny. And in this space of newly discovered freedom, you can begin to write a new story, not just for yourself, but potentially for your entire family line. Because Jung believed in the possibility of transgenerational healing. When you heal, something also heals in your lineage. It's as if you were giving a gift back to your ancestors, also liberating them from the patterns that trapped them. And at the same time, you're creating a new legacy for future generations, breaking chains that may have been transmitted for centuries. This is the true power of making the unconscious conscious. You not only transform your individual life, but you participate in the evolution of collective consciousness. Every person who does this work is contributing to a more conscious, compassionate, freer world. Where to start? Jung would say, from where you are right now, with the awareness you have at this moment, with the willingness to look within yourself with honesty and compassion, with the will to question what you've always taken for granted, with the courage to feel what has remained dormant within you. Begin by observing your reactions, especially those that seem disproportionate. Begin by questioning what values and beliefs you've inherited without questioning. Begin by exploring your family history with curiosity, not to judge, but to understand. Begin by writing a journal of your dreams, those windows to the unconscious that Jung valued so much. And above all, begin by treating yourself with the same compassion and patience you would offer to a child who's learning to walk. Because in many ways, that's what you're doing, learning to walk for the first time on your own feet, not carried by the patterns of the past. Remember that you're not alone on this journey. Jung believed in the power of conscious community, in the importance of having witnesses for your transformation process. Seek out people who are doing their own inner work, who can reflect your truth without judgment, who can hold you in difficult moments. And if this message has touched you deeply, if you feel that now is the time to begin or deepen this work of transformation, I want you to know that this channel is here to accompany you. Every week we share tools, reflections, and practices based on the wisdom of Jung and other masters of consciousness. I invite you to leave in the comments what family pattern you're ready to transform. Your testimony isn't just part of your own healing process, but it might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming videos in this series on family healing. Hit the bell to receive notifications. And if you believe this message can help someone you know, share it. Sometimes, a video shared at the right moment can be the catalyst for a profound transformation. Remember, toxic family patterns are powerful, but not more powerful than your awakened consciousness. As Jung himself said, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. And today, right now, you have the opportunity to choose again, to write a new story, to break the spell that has kept your family trapped for generations. Thank you for your presence, for your attention, for your willingness to look within. The simple fact that you've made it to the end of this video is evidence of a part of you that's ready to awaken, to heal, to transform. That part of you is stronger than you think. Trust it. Follow it. It will lead you home, to your true inner home, where no toxic pattern can reach you. See you in the next video. Until then, remember Jung's words. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens.